Hello everyone, it is Mike Levin on Friday, August 12th, 2022, and I'm going to show you something crazy today. So those who have been following along know that I have been advocating Ubuntu 18.04 Bionic Beaver for those who are trying to get onto Linux containers under Windows. And I advocate it because it's the only one where I've had a real success. I'll show you what the problem is, and then I'll show you how to solve it and how to get Linux containers, LXD, running under 20.04 or even on 22.04, which is out now. First things first, we are going to go WSL -list to show what distros I have installed, which currently are none. This is after a fresh restart so that I can do this demonstration from scratch. When people get started with Linux Terminal for the first time under Windows, the command is WSL install. That's the magic words to just get it running, but it unfortunately installs Ubuntu 20.04, under which LXD is pretty broken, and I'll show you that. I will specifically install a distro. So before I do that, I'll show you that you can do list what's available online, right? See, these are the ones that are actually available. And the ones going down this column are the ones you can install. So if I wanted to install this one here, I would type WSL --install -d for distro, and then the version. It's actually a pretty good process, right? So a new window pops up, in my case full screen. It may vary in your case. I think this is because the last time I used one of these windows I had it full screen. And it asks us for a username, so I will use Scarecrow. Give it a password. And now we're at Scarecrow at Oz, okay? And the purpose here is LXD, so I will just type the command LXD and see what happens. It believes it's not found, but it can be installed with blah, 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 blah. It's easy to follow those instructions. Now, what I'm not going to do is sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade, for your sake, watching and waiting, and for my sake, so I don't have to edit. What I'm going to do is go over to another screen. For those who aren't used to seeing me pop between screens, it's just virtual desktops that are set up under Windows. All the operating systems now have it. Mac has its version. Ubuntu has its version. Virtual desktops are very nice. So I'm going to go to a different one and use Windows key E to bring up Explorer. And in Explorer, I have where I keep my files. This data location is where I keep stuff that is current. And this systemd file here, it's in Notepad, and it's just a few commands that we use to activate systemd. Now, things here are actually strangely time dependent. So another thing I'm going to do, oh, when I went back, it had the wrong one activated. So I'll bring this back to the top. I'm going to type LXD again, just like I did there, to show you it's still not available. All right, you might think, what are you talking about? That's strange, that timing stuff. Well, first thing we do is we activate systemd. Systemd is not active. I'll show you how we can tell. We can type PS for the running things under our user, and then we can type O for formatting, COMM, space 1. You'd like, how would you ever know that? It's just I've been doing this work enough that I know. So init is the before, all right? So we are going to paste in the commands I just copied. And then one more line here enables the service. Now we have to exit out. See, now your shell will start under systemd. So we have to exit. And interestingly, we go back to the shell that we started the install from. And if we simply up arrow on it, you'll see the command that caused the install. And a neat little trick here is if you just take out the word install, it will launch into a Linux terminal, the one you just installed, under the same shell that was open. So we are Scarecrow at Oz. And now we find that command we used to see whether systemd was running. And there's systemd. Systemd is in fact running. Now you remember that command LXD to see if it was available. Oh, look, it looks like it's available now. I didn't install it. It's there though, just because I activated systemd. Recognizing systemd made LXD suddenly come alive. But it says you need it to be root. Okay, fine. Sudo LXD. But I know I want to start the init process, sudo LXD init. I just know that from prior knowledge. This is what configures with a wizard LXD so that you can get in business. And we've got one error at the top here. But the wizard is starting. That's good news. The wizard is starting. And you'll see it asks us a number of questions. I'm going to point out a few when we get to them, which are interesting and necessary to know about for the next step. So would you like to create a new local network bridge? Why, yes, I would. What should the new bridge be called? The default is LXD BRO. Yeah, let's let it be LXD, bro. And what IP address? We'll let it choose an IP address for v6. Yes, yes, yes. Automatically. And this is the last one. Now you're going to see the glorious error. This is a showstopper, right? You can't get through the wizard with all the defaults and have it just work. So what I'm going to do is exit out. And this exit, notice my cursor is Scarecrow at Oz. That's my instance of Linux under the Windows Subsystem for Linux. Before I exit, I'll show you lsb_release all. What are we running? We're running Ubuntu 20.04, codename Focal. Focal Fossa is the animal. So now we're going to exit. And to just remind you, WSL -list, that's what we have installed on our machine. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and unregister that because the damage is done. It's tasted Ubuntu 20.04 and it's not going to let me do the next step if I have that on there, especially if it's running. How can I tell if it's running? WSL list running. And it's showing me that it's running. So if I WSL shutdown and then check running again, you'll see there are no running distributions. Now I want to get rid of that entirely. Again, it's because it had a taste of it. We want it wiped off the machine entirely. So WSL unregister Ubuntu -20.04. Unregistering WSL list. There are no distributions currently installed. Now we're going to find that command that installed 20.04 right here, and we're going to change that to 18.04. Bionic Beaver. Again, it launches full screen. It'll be asking me for a username in a moment. A moment ago, we were the Tin Woodman, so on this one, I guess, no, a moment ago we were the Scarecrow, so I gave it away. We're going to be the Tin Woodman. All right, so now we're the Tin Woodman at Oz, all right? And likewise, we're going to see if LXD, what happens if we just type it. Oh, it must be run as root, right? Good news. Just sudo, no, keep that in mind for a moment. Now, I'm not going to try and do it because I know, well, watch, sudo root. I guess I will, just for completeness. Command not found, right? Okay, so it's not really working. Same old trick. We go into these commands from distro D, by the way. If you're wondering what I'm doing here, Google on distro, the word distro D, and that will tell you what this is all about. But it's basically, and look, we lost that window again. It goes to the back for some reason. So systemd must be, oh, I'm going to escape out of that and do the same thing. PS-O for formatting, program ID 1, right? Init. Command init. All right. So now we're going to paste in the commands that turn on systemd, and then one more in order to enable the service. And we're going to exit out of here. Now I'll do the same thing. I'll do lsb_release release --all to show you that we are actually on Ubuntu 18.04 Bionic Beaver. Now we'll exit, and we'll use the same trick to recycle this window, right? It opened a full screen installer, but we don't need the full screen installer. If we just go over here and get rid of the word install, it's now going to run the distribution, and you can see we're now Tin Woodman at Oz, right? And same old exercise as LXD on its own. See what happens. Error, this must be root. Sudo LXD. It's already running, it says. All right, fine, it's already running. But I do know from experience now that we have systemd installed, we'll verify that with that command that may be sitting in here. Yes, there, you can see we're running systemd rather than init, right? The init has been changed to systemd. Now we don't even need sudo. This is huge. This is so interesting. It makes LXD so much more useful to be able to just LXD init with no sudo. This is unique to 18.04. There's the wizard. We walk through the wizard. Here's the ones I like to point out. Network bridge default is yes. What should the bridge be called? LXD BRO, yes. What IP should be used? Select automatically, that's just fine. And then the rest of the way through the wizard. The question about YAML is the last one. We hit enter, and lo and behold, the wizard succeeds. We have LXD container system. Oh, do we really? Yes, let's demonstrate a few things. We can do LXD ls fast to see what ones are installed. I'm sorry, it's LXC ls fast, because once you have LXD installed, the API is controlled through the LXC command. It's the LX command as opposed to the LX daemon. The LX daemon is now off running in the background, and you're almost never going to type it again. All commands now are LXC. So let's do LXC launch from images. And even though we're under 18.04 right now, we can install Ubuntu 20.04. Doesn't really matter. And I didn't give it a name, so it'll auto select a name, which is always very interesting. Fun to see what it chooses. Organic lobster. Nice, nice. So let's take a look at the LXC fast. Hey, there's organic lobster, and it's even running. Can we get into it? LXC execute exec against O tab. Notice command line completion works here. Minus space switch user login as Ubuntu. Ubuntu at Organic Lobster. See that? We're there. And to show you we have network connectivity, we can sudo apt update. Not that it ever needs updates. These images are always just so up to date. Now, I really must impress upon you the fact that we are on Windows that has the Windows Subsystem for Linux running and an instance of Windows there. I mean, an instance of Linux there, right? I am tempted to draw a picture. And within WSL's instance of Linux, which is Tin Woodman at Oz, we're running another Linux, which is Ubuntu at Organic Lobster. And you can see we can exit out of Organic Lobster. We're back at Tin Woodman at Oz. And we can exit out of that, and we're back at the PowerShell of Windows. So this is Windows. This is the directly hosted by Windows instance of Linux, and this is the hosted by Linux instance of Linux, right? So it's working. We've got containers. And if we were to use the WSL command, we can list what's installed, just 18.04. We can list what's running. 18.04 is actually running in memory, and then we can list what's available online. Okay, well, online happens to be available 20.04. Now, here's the trick. This is the reason for this video. We are going to find that command that installed 18.04, and we're going to install 20.04, something we already did earlier in this video. Remember, I installed 20.04, and the wizard for LXD didn't work. It failed. Well, so first of all, we're going to get 20.04 back on the machine now that 18.04 is running in the backgrounds with the Linux container. Okay, so we were Scarecrow, then we're Tin Woodman, so of course now we have to be Lion. All right, Lion at Oz, nice. So the typical things prove to you the version, so that's LSB underscore release all, right? So we are back on 20.04 Focal Fossa, like we were at the beginning of the video, but we don't have systemd yet. Now, I'm just going to show you. I go over here and then I go back. We have the wrong thing there. It's just a weird Windows thing. It changes which one is on top, but it only does it once. So we pick up this command, which is our distro D magic words. We paste it in. That makes systemd available on the system, and then this activates it on the system. And just like before, now we have to exit, right? Because your shell will start under systemd, so we have to get out of our current shell. And then we can use the same trick here that we used to install it, but we just delete the word install and we will recycle this same command line interface. Remember, it's just one of the screens here that we're issuing commands from a PowerShell, but the PowerShell then turns into a login as Lion at Oz. All right, so here's the really amazing part. Going through the moves again. LXD, can you find it? Oh, look at that. So it knows something about it. It says it must be run as root. Sudo LXD init. So we're going to just go right into the wizard. We have the systemd. Let's show that. We have systemd running, right? So that's ps-o comm1. There's our systemd. So we know that the prerequisite for LXD is present. And so now we can sudo, well, we can try LXD init, just like worked. Remember on 18.04, I didn't need a sudo here. This worked. That worked under 18.04, and it made all the commands really easy. It made the LXC command easy. But we have to sudo it here. See, permission denied, always a good indicator that you got to sudo your command. LXD init. We get some sort of error here, but we also get the wizard starting. We start to answer the wizard with enter, enter, enter. Now things are going to be just a little bit different in here. Remember, we get up to this network bridge. Yes, I would like a network bridge. What would you like that bridge to be called? The default is LXD BR0. Now remember, 18.04 is running with LXD successfully in the background. If I hit enter here, it says the registered network bridge LXD BR0 already exists. Please choose another name. All right, LXD BR1. Reasonable. Hey, it didn't object to it. We continue with a wizard. So we've only really changed one thing in the wizard. That's this question here. What should the new network bridge be called? We couldn't use the default because the default's being used over on 18.04. Here on this 20.04, we just incremented the 0 to 1. All right, so this is the last question, the one about the YAML. We hit enter. This failed before. This did not work earlier in the video. The wizard worked. All right, so let's try LXC ls fast. Oh, permission problems, right? So even things like listing your containers still needs to be sudoed or sudoed. I should really try and change my pronunciation of these things. And there's nothing running. So we know we're going to need sudo for creating something. So sudo LXD launch. And let's see. Images. There's other ways to do this without using images : but this is the way I learned it. So images Ubuntu and / and then your version. I'll do 20.04 again. So we have a 20.04 BIOS right now, and enter. It'll give it its own name, or unknown command launch. Of course, because I did LXD, it's got to be LXC. LXC for the commands. LXD is the daemon. Creating instance. Casual cockatoo. All right. Okay. So now let's list them. There's casual cockatoo, and it's running. Let's get into it. EXEC, execute a command against C tab. Oh, no command line completion. Because it has to be sudoed, you'll lose command line completion. I hate that. I would much rather run LXD and LXC without requiring admin privileges. CASUAL, COCKATOO, casual cockatoo, and -- space switch user space -- login as user Ubuntu. All right, there we not found. Okay, I spelled it wrong. CASUAL causal. Causal, not casual. CAUSAL. See? CAUSAL. All right. Oh, there I am. I got in. There. Ubuntu at causal cockatoo. Sudo apt update to prove to you we have network connectivity, right? It's working. This is LXD under Ubuntu 20.04 Focal Fossa. I have not been able to do this before. I was greatly inspired by one of my YouTube viewers, Scott M. I believe he's a Bell Research Facility veteran, which is really cool. So when he talks, I listen, and he got this to work under 22.04 from the web store. So maybe we can throw a bonus in, right? So I'll exit out. Now this is Inception here, right? This is Inception. So I'm exiting out of the container under 20.04. There's the parent Linux host, but that has been run from a shell under Windows, PowerShell. So another exit's going to bring us back out to PowerShell here. And if I were to do WSL list, you'll see both are there. And if I were to do WL list running, you'll see that both are actually running too. So shall we go for broke? I've never done this before. This will be a first in a video. Let's go to the Microsoft Store, which I've had terrible success with this lately. It just wasn't coming up. I tried doing a live broadcast yesterday of a similar process, and it did not work for me. A few of you out there might have actually seen that. But here we are now, where you can see a variety of things I own, but that does not mean it's installed. I can click this, and then I can click this, and now we're going to be installing 22.04. The code name for that is something jellyfish, jammy jellyfish or something. All right, so it's installed, and I suppose I could open it here. I'm surprised it's not auto opening it to install it, but I will close the web store. I will go back to here, and do that WSL list again. Oh, look at that. It doesn't know it's installed. See that? It doesn't know it's installed. So we go over to where we have access to our start menu, and we start typing Ubuntu. And it's going to be one of these options. There it is there. I will click that, and it'll start the installer. I'm going to put it on its own screen so we're not distracted by that other stuff. All right, almost done. The installer will require your attention soon. It's going to look a wee bit different than 18.04 and 20.04 did. 22.04 has some graphics to it. Oh, look at that. It came up in this strange little window. I haven't seen that before. English. Continue. That looks like the the Windows API here. That doesn't look like command line at all. So my name, fine. Okay, so we need another character. Woogle. Y'all remember the Woogle bug from Wizard of Oz, right? We'll accept the defaults here. So tiny, that's not going to play very well on video, but you get the idea. May take several minutes depending on your internet connection. All right, fine. What's happening here is different from the last time I tried this. I think they're updating 22.04 in the store in real time. This feels like an apt update and an apt upgrade going on in the background. And I am going to surf away here for a moment and actually list stuff again. There it is. It's listed. It is now listed where it wasn't before. So allowing the installer to run by finding it on the start menu after installing it from the Microsoft Store has like registered it, right? Because remember, deleting them is unregistering them. Still applying changes. All right. All right. So while that's applying its changes, I guess I'll do a few reminders here about stuff that's going on. None of this is going to work without systemd activated and installed and enabled, right? So there's two steps to it here. And I break it up into two because of the sudos. I can't execute these as one command. That wouldn't be possible, but I can execute these three together, fetch the installer script, change it to be executable, and then actually execute it. And then after it's executed, I then enable the service. Oh, good. All right. It suggested that you do the following: sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade, finish. But we're not going to. I didn't do it on either of the others because this is a continuous take video and I'm not going to edit. But I will copy this because I know we're going to need it. And we'll go over here and we will WSL D. And we'll run that distribution, recycling this window just the way we did. See, we're Woogle at Oz now, the Woogle bug. Deep breath, deep breath. We will verify that that 22.04 from Microsoft doesn't have systemd running already. It might, because they hired the writer of systemd, stole them from Red Hat. And let's see, that would be ps-o COMM1. Oh, it's the old system, so we need to paste this in. Nope, not paste that in. I got that rid of that in my copy buffer. Much better. Activate the service. We have to exit, reload it, confirm that we are actually running systemd now. There's systemd. And that means we can sudo LXD init. The newer the version of Ubuntu, the higher the likelihood that LXD is pre-installed and just waiting for you to type that. Here's the wizard. Talk about inception. This is a Windows 11 system of moderate configuration that now has Windows plus 3 host versions of Linux, with each host version of Linux having a Linux client. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus Windows 7 total operating systems running. Try doing that with virtual machines. Okay, so would you like the network bridge? Yes. What should we call the network bridge? Let's try 0. Oh, doesn't like it. Well, let's try LXDBR1. Oh, doesn't like that. We used that one already, so LXDBR2. Oh, it took it. The wizard is continuing. We finish the wizard. Here's where an error would occur. Here's where the error usually does occur. But because 18.04 allows the wizard to work correctly the first time with no special magic hand waving in the background, the subsequent 20.04 and 22.04 LXD inits worked as well, although you had to change the name of the network bridge each time. Okay, so LXC, we know we're going to have to sudo that, so we'll just go ahead and do it. Launch an Ubuntu image 20.04, because I'm just doing that consistently at this point. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Images colon Ubuntu /20.04. We'll let it pick a name. I could put a name at the end there, but you know, it seems to be fun to see these names. It's a neat quail, a lot easier to type. That's nice. Sudo LXC ls fast. There is our neat quail running. Let's get into the neat quail. Sudo LXC exec n tab tab tab. No command line completion. Neat quail minus minus space switch user space login as Ubuntu. There we are inside of, we are Ubuntu at neat quail. See, we were Woogle at Oz. Now we're Ubuntu at neat quail. So while we have this running, I might as well use my virtual screens for some demonstration purposes, right? I'll move this thing here over to here. Although you can move them around now in Windows 11. That's like super awesome. I got to get out of my habit of moving the apps in favor of moving the whole screens if I'm going to be really staying on Windows 11. But at any rate, we can bring up a terminal over here. No, that'll launch my particular version. I have a default set on that. So we're going to go in through PowerShell each time. WSL list. We'll go in descending order. So over here, I'll do a clear, and I'll do an LSB underscore release. Oh no, it's going to be 20.04 inside the inception on all of those. It really doesn't matter, but we are going to do WSL distro. We'll do them in order. That's 22 over there, so we'll do 20 here in descending order, right? So this brings us into Lion at Oz. And LXC, oh, we got a sudo LXC ls fast. Its machine is this, so we'll use the copy buffer this time for that. LXC sudo LXC exec switch user. No, it's sudo LXC exec against this machine, switch user, login Ubuntu. So now we are I shouldn't even clear that to keep the context. Here, let me exit out. LSB release. This is where we should do a release all. And from here we go into the machine. Yeah. Yeah, it's more or less showing that same thing. And then here we'll do the last one. WSL distro, and I happen to know Ubuntu 18.04 LSB release all. And here we don't need the sudos. This is amazing. I love this API so much better under 18.04. It just goes LXC, EXEC, and I forget what the machine name was, so I guess we better list it. LXC, LS, fast, LXC, EXEC, against O tab, command line completion, because there's no sudos. Yay! I'll have to look into that, how to get LXD running on the higher versions Ubuntu's without needing admin privilege for every little thing you do. So LXC, EXEC, Organic Lobster, switch user, login, Ubuntu. I also need a shorter way to log in as a user under these things. So here's Inception for you. I wish I had my Windows 10 screen transitions, but you know, here's an Ubuntu 22.04 with a LXD running here. Here is a 20.04 running with LXD here. And same thing with 18.04. So it's 3 Linux host machines, 3 LXD client machines. Lovely, right? In case you don't understand, LXD list. No, it's not there. It's WSL list. And so these are the 3 that are on my machine now, 3 versions of Ubuntu. What's running? All 3 of them are running. And each one that's running is now successfully an LXD Linux container host. And each one of them running a container. Organic Lobster, Causal Cockatoo, and Neat Quail. Pretty neat, huh? Lovely, successful. I'll have to decide now which version of Ubuntu I want to keep, but I very much resent that you have to jump through such hoops. You're the one who's going to have to jump through such hoops. I'm the one who had to figure it all out. And let me tell you, there's other ways to do this by fixing it correctly. There's a whole bunch of Linux networking stuff in there that you can do, specific manual configuring of the LXD network, of the LXD networks, which would get around this by doing it by having deeper knowledge. But this stuff shouldn't need you to be a sysadmin DevOps guru. Docker doesn't require it, although Docker has similar problems under Windows Subsystem for Linux for exactly the same reason. It has something to do with IP tables becoming, NFT tables, something along those lines. But this has been a very, very successful video. And I guess I'll just do a couple more things, the prerequisites that you probably are going to want to understand. One is definitely distro D. Get to know this site. That's where I copied and pasted those commands from that you saw me use so much later in the video. It's this, and it's this. Under option 2 for an already installed WSL Linux. They have a little program here that'll walk you through installing different versions of systemd enabled images that they have already pre-prepared. I was kind of had an aversion to that, but I tried it. It's not so bad. And yeah, that's probably the most important thing to get familiar with as far as getting up and running with Linux containers today on Windows under the Windows Subsystem for Linux. Besides the fact that you've got to walk through the wizard of 18.04 and keep that running in the background and change your network bridge on subsequent Ubuntu versions you install. And the API changes subtly from not requiring sudo to requiring it. So there you have it. Thanks for joining me. Hope this is helpful. If it is, definitely subscribe to my channel. Give this video a big thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. Hit the bell for live casts, which I'm doing more and more often now. And later, Gators.